You have the right.
خاتم الأنبياء محمد صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد
وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. فقد قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اعلموا أنما الحياة الدنيا لعب ولهو وزينة وتفاخر بينكم وتكاثر بالأموال والأولاد كمثل غيث أعجب الكفار نباته ثم يهيج فتراه مصفرا ثم يكون حطاما في الآخرة عذاب شديد ومغفرة من الله ورضوان وما الحياة الدنيا إلا متاع الغرور. Recite a second salawat, please. And inshallah your third salawat and a little bit louder in the honor of the Ramadan. Inshallah your fourth salawat for all of those who sponsor the program, for all of those who put time and effort in actually running all of these majalis and help out for this Islamic Center Al-Mahdi. And the fifth one for every single brother and sister who's present today and all of those who are absent. And let's not forget about the marhumin al-marhumat, mu'minin al-mu'minat, especially those who have come down with difficulties and sicknesses. Let's recite the 6 salawat followed by Surah Al-Fatiha. First and most of all, Jami'an, Salamun Alaikum. Alhamdulillah for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving us this tawfiq to gather around and trying to learn a little bit more, inshallah, from the school of thought of the Ahlul Bayt. So for the previous nights, we started the topic of eschatology. We started the topic of resurrection. We started the topic of talking about what is reality and what is unreality as we live in this world. A couple points were mentioned, and we got to this point that as we are living in this world, it happens that a lot of stuff that we tend and we assume that it's a fact and it's a reality for us, it actually turns out to be an unreal fact, right? And why is that happens? Because we are so used to this using our senses to actually make a judgment call, right? As we grow up, as I mentioned yesterday, right? We constantly are using our senses to evaluate stuff. We run cons and pros based on our own senses. So our own senses has only, so much of a limitation or so much capacity in which it can actually acquire knowledge, right? So once we want to talk about the matter of eschatology, once we want to talk about the matter of spirituality, once we want to talk about the matter of resurrection and the journey back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have to go beyond the physical senses. Because the physical senses, as I mentioned, it has only so much of a limitation that it can actually go to, right? So what's the next step after the senses? We talked about the intellect, or as in the riwayas they refer to as aql. A lot of riwayas they recommend us to do ta'aqqul, to ponder, to contemplate, right? To think about what? To think about what specific field. Why are always mentioning to think more, to ponder about this, to contemplate about this, right? The ayahs of the Quran, right? If you take all of the ayahs in the holy book of the Quran, you can say about 1/3 of it is ahkam. What about the rest of the ayahs? What are they talking about? In how many of ayahs do you see the word لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ, right? Or in how many ayahs do you say أَكْثَرُهُمْ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ? This constant usage of the word aql or ta'aqul, right? In the Quran itself indicates that this is one of the important things that we, as the Shia, as the followers of the school of the Ahlul Bayt, have to do and must actually pertain and maintain, inshallah, and most likely in the month of Ramadan as well. So following the same pattern of the discussion, we started with this topic that as we are living here, right, we are living in a world which a lot of stuff may actually be assumed as a fact when in reality is not a fact. So what actually teaches us what is like necessarily good for us and what is not, we got to this conclusion that is called the religion. Why religion? We mentioned this one, that no matter who the person is, whether being a believer or disbeliever, he or she is on a path, whether he or she wants it or not. Meaning that none of us, like in this majlis, none of us have the power to say, okay, I don't want to, I want to tell my heart to stop beating right at this second. Anybody has this power? MashaAllah, maybe somebody has it. So you can actually say, I want to make my blood stop gushing through my veins. Can anybody do this one? If so, teach me. It would be good. It would be good opportunity, right? So meaning that no matter who the person is, he or she is on this path. It's constantly moving, right? Without even noticing it, right? Sometimes we think that we only make accomplishment when we're awake, but in reality, even when a person is asleep, the soul of the person is constantly growing. On which path? That's up to that person. That's up to the deeds of that person, right? So when we talk about this constant growth, especially in the spiritual, terms, then we need this plan in which can reconcile both the realms, physical and spiritual, together. That plan, which is the most comprehensive plan, we call it religion. So religion is not something scary. It's not something that we should run away from. No, it's a plan of living. It's a lifestyle. It's a plan in which teaches us how to think, how to see, find the perfect perspective, and according to that perspective, act and behave in this life, right? So let's go to the Quran. How does Quran refers to this one? Quran has a very beautiful verse, the verse 20 of Surah Al-Hadid, in which it summarizes the entire dunya in one verse, actually half of the verse. It starts like this. It says, أَعْلَمُ أَنَّمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا لَعِبٌ وَلَهْوٌ وَزِينَةٌ وَتَفَاخُرٌ بَيْنَكُمْ وَتَفَاخُرٌ بِالْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَوْلَادِ. أَعْلَمُ means what? To be aware, right? Acknowledge this, recognize this, right? Pay attention to this, right? Pay attention to what? أَنَّمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا. Indeed, in fact, the hayat of dunya, the life of this dunya, لَعِبٌ لَهْوٌ زِينَةٌ تَفَاخُرٌ تَكَاثُرٌ. 5 elements. If you want to summarize the whole entire dunya, the whole 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 120 years which we're going to live, if you want to summarize it in 5 stages, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions it in the Quran. It says it's not going to be out of these 5 stages. No matter what you do, it's going to fall within these 5 categories. What's the first one? Life. What's life? Life comes from games, huh? Mula'aba. Life comes from playing games. But they say it's a little bit more thorough than just games, right? Sometimes we play game to have fun. Sometimes we play game without even having intention to play the game, right? So they usually refer to the games which the children play. Right? The children, the minute we let them lose, or the minute they find freedom, they go after finding something to have some sort of a soccer, or they find a ball to kick it around, right? So they just immediately go after finding a specific activity just to play. So there is no intention behind it. There is no purpose behind it, right? Then the second stage, or the second category is what? Lahw. What's the difference between la'ib and lahw? They're pretty close. But la'ib is for the children, lahw is for a little bit more grown-ups, like for teenagers. We call them umur al-lahwi, right? Which comes from the same category. It is the deeds, it's those actions which has no intellectual purpose behind it. Right? A lot of stuff we do doesn't have any good reasoning behind it. For example, how many times do we check our cell phone within a 5-minute period? How many times do we check our cell phone within 1 hour? Just to see if there is a message, just to see if there is another comments on social media, just to see if there is another likes or dislike, just to see if there is another video recently been shared or not, right? How many times out of the habit we just pull out our cell phone and just look at it and we just try to go over our list of contacts to see who can we contact, right? A lot of small and minor things that we do falls within this category of lahv, right? Then after this one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, zina. What is zina? Ornament, beauty, right? What is ornament? What does zina means? When we talk about zina, zina is usually used when some element is used to cover something else, right? For example, let's say if I have a big scratch on my face, right? I will use some, the face powder, I don't know what it's called, the face powder for makeup, right? To cover that scratch. Why? Because that scratch may not be that, presentable in a sense, right? So I want to make that covered up in order to present myself in a better, in a better way, right? So this act of covering something and presenting in a better way is called zinat. It's called using ornaments, right? It's called covering up, right? So this is the third stage. Hold on to this and I will go in details in each one. After zina, what does Allah says? Tafakhur. What is tafakhur? Bragging about. There's resumes. The more of the resumes, at first you usually start with a very simple resume. We have only education and we have perhaps some internship, right? After a couple of years of working, the history builds up. One page becomes 2 page, 2 page becomes 3 page, 3 page becomes 4 page. For some people, it goes up to the 6 pages, right? And then all of a sudden we start, making this comparison, right? Between ourselves and others. Oh, I've accomplished this much in so many years. Versus, for example, my brother or my sister, he or she could not do the same. And a lot of times we don't even express it, we just think about it, right? We have this sense of comparison and we feel good about accomplishments. This is what we call tafakhur, right? Meaning that we feel good about it, we brag about it, say, okay, these are my accomplishments. And we usually defend them, right? We usually announce them, right? Then after tafakhur comes takathur. What is takathur? Comes from kathrat, comes from plurality, comes from extension, right? It's a matter of extending whatever we have. If it's wealth, we want it more. If it's power, we want more. If it's fame, we want more, right? If it's, for example, having high status, we want higher status, right? No matter what, people are different. Some people, they have the taste for money, some they have a taste for knowledge, some they have taste for power. People are different, right? So no matter which field they are, they ask for more and more and more, right? So 5 categories. Now interesting, these 5 categories, they say it goes according to our life or our age. Meaning as we age, we tend to go from one category to the second category to the third category, right? And then for some people, as they age, they even still remain in the first category. You probably have seen those who are adults, but at the same time they do some stuff that, you assume that they're just, for example, a 5-year-old kid, right? So that's what the Quran says, أَعْلَمُ أَنَّمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا لَعِبٌ وَلَهْوٌ وَزِينَةٌ وَتَفَاخُرٌ بَيْنَكُمْ وَتَكَاثُرٌ فِي الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَوْلَادِ, right? So 5 stages. As we're young, we're usually interested in games and playing around, having fun, without any sort of thinking. We grow up a little bit more, we become a teenager, we start having interest in the deeds which we call them lahv. Doesn't have any intellectual or rational reasoning behind it. We tend to do it just to make the time go by, right? We grew up a little bit more, now the topic of zina, the topic of looking cool, the topic of being being that number one guy in the school, being that number one girl in the school comes up to the mind, right? The topic of zina comes about. So we see always the fashion, right, is the top topic among the youth, right? We grow up a little bit more, now comes the matter of tafakhur. Now we have a set of accomplishments. Now we start making a comparison between what I have accomplished and what my colleagues have accomplished, right? We grow up even more, Now we look back, we have passed all of these stages, inshallah. Now we start counting. We start counting whatever things that we have left. And we want to make them more in terms of the numbers. Whether it be in children, whether it be in wealth, whether it be like, the amount of certificate or degrees that we got. No matter how much we have, we want it more, right? Very interesting story here. You guys know Harun al-Rashid, right? Who was he? The Abbasi Khalif. When did he govern or when did he rule? About 170 Hijrah, right? So that means about 150 years after the time of the Holy Prophet, right? Now he, being the king, being the the tyrant king, one day he wishes for this, he wishes to find somebody who has heard a hadith, right, from the Holy Prophet of Islam himself. No intermediary, right? He wants to find somebody who has heard the hadith directly from the Holy Prophet. So do the math, 150 years after the time of the Holy Prophet, not that many companions will be left, right? But his Harun, he puts the order. Go look around